Alright, hello and welcome to another online lecture. We're going to go over some of the introductory material in the Therapeutic Exercise Guide. So let me scroll down. I believe this is on page, here we go, page 7 in the introduction section. So first, it's just going to go over some of the leading causes of death in the United States. And we're going to go over the leading cause of death. A lot of people assume and think that it's cancer, but actually, heart disease is the leading cause of death in the United States, which is interesting because if you compare it to other countries, heart disease and cancer aren't even necessarily the first or the second. But the United States has a little different makeup in terms of lifestyle and other healthcare interventions as opposed to some of the other countries, which we'll go over here. The other surprising thing for people to learn about is that accidents, so medical errors, either wrong medications or incorrect dosages of medications or incorrect surgeries or other procedures are the third leading cause. But they are significantly less than the first and second. So they're only at 6%, but they are still the third leading cause of death in the United States. So that's a highly preventable mode of death, obviously. And this information is out of the CDC, so it's really updated and current information. If you want to check out more about that, you can click on either of these links to learn more about some of that data and some of that information. Okay, let me clear this out. And it's always interesting to look at the United States in comparison to other countries. So this is out of the World Health Organization's data and information. And you're not going to need to know these necessarily, but you can see throughout the different countries here. Spain is third, 83.1 years average life expectancy. Canada is actually really good, 8th at 82.8, and the United States is pretty far down on the list. As you can see up here, we are 36th on the list. So even we are a very advanced, developed country, and we have a lot of scientific research. Third most populated country. With all of that, we are still relatively low in life expectancy. What do we have, though, in terms of prevention? What do you think is the best preventative drug we have? And everybody needs to take that medicine. That would be exercise. So if you think about even just a medicine ball, it's a healthy way to get fit and to provide exercise and wellness and health for your body. So exercise is the best medicine, and you can see further down here some of the benefits to exercise. And in this one, we know that exercise can help to prevent diabetes. It's not working for typing here, but type 2 adult onset diabetes can prevent that. We also know that exercise has been shown to decrease blood pressure. This is specifically referring to systolic blood pressure. Systolic is also the blood pressure will typically increase during exercise, but then it'll rapidly go back or revert back to normal levels after exercise. But because heart disease is the number one leading cause of death, lowering blood pressure is really critical to preventing a cardiac or other cardiovascular event. So that's a huge benefit of exercise. In terms of the CDC guidelines, these guidelines have been around for many years and they really haven't updated the overall numbers for that. A couple of things to point out on this slide and this information. The CDC does classify adults as 18 to 64 and does classify older adults as anything over 65 plus. However, the textbook has some interesting terminology for this. Over 85 years old. They say you're old. 75 to 84 is mid-old, and 65 to 74 is young old. So some interesting terminologies for that. But for the most part, the CDC has good terminologies for that. And anytime in this guide, if you see the web symbol, you can click on these links, and that'll take you straight to the link in the website where we got that information. So in terms of the CDC recommendations, they have been recommending this quite for some time. The Americans, adults, and older adults combined, either demographic there, should get 2.5 hours a week of moderate intensity aerobic activity, or 150 minutes. Or the opposite thing they can have there is half of that, so 75 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes of vigorous intensity aerobic activity. So that is the first recommendation, that they have either 150 moderate or 75 vigorous. The second part of that they recommend for everyone is that they also have an equivalent mix of moderate and vigorous exercise, aerobic activity, and muscle strengthening 2 or more days a week. And they do recommend working all the major muscle groups. So with that, they also state this here, no matter what you're doing up there, you should also have muscle strengthening activity 2 or more days per week. So I have it twice in here because I think it's important to highlight 2 or more days per week of strengthening type activities. Another great quote here about exercise is, if it could be packed into a pill, it would be the single most widely prescribed and beneficial medicine in the nation. And then next up, going over the difference between a client and a patient. We know that generally patients are going to be having some type of medical diagnosis, often a physical therapy diagnosis as well when we're seeing them. So there's a specific dysfunction or problem they're seeing us for, and then we're treating that. Whereas clients, quite the opposite. They don't necessarily have anything diagnosed, so they are more in a wellness or health benefit situation, but they don't necessarily have a rehab process or rehabilitation process that they're recovering from, or they're not out of surgery or something like that. So that is the difference between a client and a patient, and Kisner textbook has more information on that. So that is a pretty good stopping point for the introductory material, and we'll have more lectures coming up next. Thank you.